Welcome back to Weird Stuff in a Can. Today, Fray Bentos steak and kidney bean vegan pie. So, this is a pie in a can that you bake in the can after removing the lid. We've actually reviewed most of the range of these on Weird Stuff in a Can. To people in Britain, these are probably not weird at all. To people outside of Britain, the whole idea of a savoury pie might be weird, but certainly pie in a can probably is. Anyway, this is a kind of limited edition that they've done, and it's a vegan steak and kidney bean. Bit of a play on words there, because steak and kidney as a pie, obviously containing beef steak and usually pig's kidney or lamb's kidney, is a very popular pie, although not as popular as it used to be. This one obviously is vegan, so it doesn't contain meat, but it's got kidney beans and, well, we'll see what they mean by steak, won't we? Let's have a look at the can. So, important, remove the lid before baking. PETA Vegan Food Award winner. Yeah, looks like that was the only sort of accreditation that they went for on this. Ingredients: water, wheat flour, which is made of wheat flour, wheat gluten, calcium carbonate, iron, niacin, thiamine, palm oil, corn flour, kidney beans, rapeseed oil, salt, wheat gluten, soya protein, palm fat, yeast extract, wheat fibre, flavourings which are barley malt extract, yeast powder, spices, sugar, thickener, methyl cellulose, preservative, potassium sorbate, onions leeks, onion powder, garlic powder, carrots, emulsifier, which is mono and diglycerides of fatty acids, tomato puree, parsley, white peppercorn, bay leaf. Quite a few scary chemical sounding ingredients in there. Methyl cellulose is quite a common thickener for gravy because it enables gravy to be thickened without setting. Potassium sorbate, common preservative. That emulsifier, mono and diglycerides of fatty acids, you'll find in a whole lot of things. 2 different kinds of palm oil in there, so feel free to hate that. And what I like here is this thing that says remove lid using a robust can opener. We highly recommend both the Brabantia Essential line and OXO Good Grips can openers. Well, I have both, and usually I use my trusty Brabantia here, but I'm going to use the OXO Good Grips today. Place open can on a baking tray, preheated oven 190°C, 25 to 30 minutes until crust is risen and golden brown. Right, OXO Good Grips, here we go. Now this can opener is different to other types of can opener in that it cuts through the seam around the top of the can. So in theory this leaves no sharp edges on either piece, but we will see if that turns out to be reality or just a dream. I tell you what, it's less pleasant to use than the Brabantia. That requires more turning force to use this can opener than I'm accustomed to applying to the Brabantia can opener. Anyway, I think we've probably been round more than once now. Oh, there it is. So no sharp edges on there and no sharp edge on there. And in fact, you can kind of almost use that as a lid on there. So maybe I'll keep this can and make something out of it. As I kind of expected, a rather unappetizing bit of pastry is all we can really see. Let's have a sniff though. It smells like kind of vegetable soup, which is about what we should expect really. It is essentially a vegetable stew with a disc of pastry on top. Right, I'm going to go and bake this now exactly according to the instructions on the can, and then we'll give it a taste. Okay, that's time up. Let's see what it looks like now. So, the crust has risen and it's golden. I would say that's a little bit on the pale side, so I'm just going to put it back in for, well, another few minutes. The can did say 25 to 30 minutes, so we'll give it that extra 5 minutes, I think. Okay, the additional 5 minutes is up, oven off. And that's all it's going to get. I'm not going to go beyond the recommended baking time. Well, it has actually risen a bit more, and I would say that's a nice golden colour for a pie. So, I'm going to take that out. I think we'll find that'll sink a little bit. I'm just going to let that stand for 5 minutes before I even attempt to serve it, because it's going to be boiling hot inside of there. Alright then, Okay, this has been standing for about 10 minutes since I cooked it, and it's no longer quite crispy anymore. It's gone a bit soft on top there, but not to worry. Now, I've got a steak knife just in case it really is like steak here, but I doubt it somehow. Yeah, I think I'll do this. I'll put a plate over there while I just open this up and have a look. Now, it's important to have reasonable expectations for this pastry. It's been already cooked inside the can, and the idea of cooking a disc of puff pastry on top of a bunch of wet fillings inside a can and then having it bake up crisp, it's a bit foolish to expect that that will do anything marvellous. So it's always the case that these pies have a kind of rather doughy underlayer. I've got to say that, well, that filling's a bit gelatinous, but it doesn't look terrible. I thought it was going to be a bit paler than that. Well, I think that's probably enough to be going on with. Looks a bit sad though. I'm not really having anything else with this today. We would normally have mash and peas or something with a pie, but let's just see what we're dealing with here. So there is a crisp top layer of pastry, and then there are these other rather sad and gummy layers of pastry under here that are more like pasta, halfway between pastry and pasta. This is entirely normal for this kind of pie because of the manufacturing method. So this is one of the pieces of steak. This is soya and wheat protein, I think. Let's have a taste of that. Not particularly tasty. Just going to try this gravy, supposedly gravy, this gelatinous wobbly gravy on its own. Weirdly tasteless and kind of sweet. Yeah, almost like some sort of jam in there. Kidney bean, actually the least disappointing part of the whole thing. Bit of pepper, I think, because not enough in there already. I think it actually does need a bit of salt, which is unusual for a canned food. They're normally a bit salty. Right, a piece of this top pastry with some of the filling. It's all right. Yeah, it's not amazing. It's not particularly savoury. This pastry on the bottom layer, it is cooked. It's kind of like dumplings. Neither terrible nor marvellous, I would say. It's just, I think it's a bit ungenerous on the fillings, to be honest. I mean, let's have a look and see. So I'll turn this upside down so we can see. Ow, too hot. That's how much filling there is underneath that 1/3 of the pie. And it's mostly this weird gelatinous gravy. There is a little bit of the fake steak and of course the kidney beans. But yeah, not a whole lot of filling in there, which is kind of standard for these pies. They are built down to a price, essentially. Not terrible, not particularly exciting. The steak is just rather soft. Vegetable protein. Kind of, you could believe it was meat, I suppose, but it's not really like steak. I think this would have been better if they'd combined this with the Balti pie. So if they'd done more filling, and these filling ideas are not bad, but I think they would have been better if they'd been combined with that Balti flavour, the curry flavour, into one kind of complete pie. If it ever looks awkward for me to eat with a knife and fork, it's not because of my technique, it's because there's a camera thing right here in front of my face, and I have to kind of work around that and without dripping things onto my lap. So Fray Bentos vegan steak and kidney bean pie. It's all right. I'd say it's probably not worse than some of their meat pies because sometimes those are really, really poor. Sometimes I've had examples of those and they've got almost no meat in them. They're entirely gravy. So I suppose it's not worse in that respect. I just think they probably could have done better. It doesn't quite resemble the picture on the pack there, and it should. So I probably will eat the rest of this, even though it's not unpalatable. But I think what I would like is this filling combined with the Balti one. So it's got a curry flavour, but also got beans in it. That would be nice. I mean, to be honest, they could do a vegan chili pie, and that would be quite nice, I think. Okay, future shrimp here. 3 things about this Good Grips can opener, which I've had for quite a while now, by the way. One is that it takes considerable force to turn this thing when it's engaged with the can. It might just be because this is a particularly tough can. Maybe I should try it on some more standard cans. But it did seem like it was an awful lot of effort to wind it around the can. Secondly, this little peg here, which I'm sure is essential to the build of the whole thing, you can't use it on some pull tab cans because of that, because that little peg there will catch on the pull tab. And of course, people will tell me I should open pull tab cans with the pull tab, but the Brabantia does it better. And the third thing with this is, while I was washing up my plate, and I didn't keep it, I noticed there was actually a tiny little razor sharp shard of steel from this can, like a little piece of swarf. And I think that's because I went round more than once. So I went all the way round and it cut through the seam, and I think I went partly the way round again, and I suspect the cut line was slightly off and it shaved off a little piece of metal. Now, I probably shouldn't have gone round more than once, but it's very easy to do. And that resulted in a very sharp little piece of steel in my food, which I didn't even notice, and fortunately I didn't eat. I wish I'd kept it actually, I could have showed it to you, but I didn't. I threw it away when I was doing the washing up. Finally, a tiny little appeal to any Americans watching this. In the 1980s, a friend of our family went off to the United States and came back with two things that I remember. They probably brought back more than two things, but there's two things that I really remember them bringing back. One of them was Amway, which I don't want to talk about at all. The other one was a cherry pie in a can, and the can was shaped very much like this. And I don't know what that was, because I've not been able to find any trace of it at all on the internet anywhere. No photos or anything. But it was a cherry pie. I think it was one of these kind of artificial cherry pies, where the cherries are reconstituted from probably real cherries and other things. Those kind of blobs of gelatinous cherry that you get in some canned cherry pie fillings. I don't know, because I don't think we ever opened it, whether the can just contained cherry pie filling and it was a gimmick where you would open it, you'd tip out the filling into a bowl, you'd line this with pastry, and then you'd put the filling back in and bake it in a pie pan that you've got for free as part of the can. I don't know if it was that, or if it was a ready-made, ready-to-bake pie inside the can, much as these are. Can anybody watching this, who lives in the United States, remember anything like that? It was in a can shaped very much like this, probably flatter and broader. And the can was whitish, I think, with possibly navy blue writing and pictures of lattice pastry and cherries and stuff on it. Can anybody help me out on that? Or am I actually remembering something which never existed at all? But anyway, that was Fray Bentos steak and kidney bean pie. Weird stuff in a can on atomic shrimp. I hope you found that enjoyable to watch. I almost found it enjoyable to eat. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.